Yay.
Welcome, everybody.
Recording in progress.
To our very informal Mother's Day chat with the incredible Lucy Lyons from Lucy Lyons Fertility. She is amazing. I love her. We've connected, I don't know how long ago, but she's incredible and she's a wealth of knowledge and she brings the medical perspective as well. So I'm so excited to have her here. My name is obviously Louise Siwicki for everyone who doesn't know and is listening back, and I am a wellness and success coach, but obviously known for my work with fertility and infertility. But yeah, it's not just obviously that, but I'm well known for my work with that. You know, mostly work with women, high-performing women who are struggling. You know, everything in their life has worked out for them thus far. The more that they've pushed, the harder they've worked, the higher the career ladder they've climbed, you know, all of the things. And fertility just is not like that, unfortunately. And this can feel very overwhelming, very scary. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty. So it's about navigating that, really is. So that's a little bit about me. Lucy.
I am an embryologist by trade. I started my embryology career 25 years ago, and I have worked in Australia, Sweden, UK, Ireland, Queensland. Then I took a step sideways in my career, started working for a company called Vitrolife, who manufacture and market products to IVF clinics. I was at their head office in Sweden, one of their global customer support embryologists, in and out of IVF clinics all throughout, mostly southern Germany and Austria, but Eastern Europe, Scandinavia, UK, and around Australia. Along the way, got married, had difficulty conceiving, had an awful miscarriage, finally had a baby. She turned 15 the other day. She now features on my stories occasionally on Instagram. Took another 7 years in between to have our second child, with lots of recurrent miscarriage and infertility and very challenging years in the middle there, during which we moved back to Australia and I took up a job as a medical liaison officer with one of the big IVF companies. So I was in and out of GP clinics, helping them work out how they could look after their fertility patients. When I was 44 and 37 and a half weeks pregnant with our second child, I was made redundant from that role when they restructured our whole department, because they couldn't really see the direct financial link between the work that we were doing and the shareholder dividends. And that was the final straw in the corporate IVF coffin for me, when I then went, no, I actually need to go back to helping real people navigate their way through this very big business industry. So my work now, 8 years now, I've been doing Two Lines Fertility, and I provide independent fertility guidance and support, filling in all the gaps from high school health ed, helping people to understand all the bits that they missed, and then helping them to navigate their way through IVF, if that's where they end up. So avoid IVF if you can, navigate IVF if you have to.
I love that. So we're here to talk about Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day sucks.
It does. It can be really tricky.
Many reasons.
Yeah. And I think, you know, well, first of all, it's just one day, isn't it? Let's put everything into perspective. It's 24 hours. You go to bed on the Saturday.
Yeah, but except it isn't, Lou.
Well,
it isn't, because it's like 3 weeks beforehand. Are you interested in getting Mother's Day emails from us? No, fuck off. Sorry, I swore. But, you know, would you, you know, what about this brochure from this jewelry place? The thing, $4,000 you can spend on mum's jewelry, and buy a new television for mum for Mother's Day. And all the marketing around Mother's Day goes for weeks beforehand. And it's really, really stressful. Even the companies that say, do you want to receive Mother's Day emails from us? Even that email, it's amazing that they do that, but even that email is triggering for a lot of my clients. And, you know, I think out of the 5 or 6 miscarriages I had between my 2 children, at least 3 of them were all due in this last week of April, first week of May. Both of my children just had their birthdays over the weekend. So this time of year is very triggering just for me alone, but adding Mother's Day into that is just like an extra nail in that coffin.
And it's just, I mean, I guess it's just another reason why you've failed, it hasn't worked, why it's working for everyone else and it's
Because
not.
all the pictures you see are mums with their little kids or people with their elderly mums or siblings trying to decide whether, all of it is more evidence that you haven't got this thing that you really wanted. And that is really challenging. And then it all goes away the day after. But it just builds. And then the day after, Mother's Day, suddenly everyone's forgotten about Mother's Day and then moved on to whatever comes next, the June long weekend or the races or winter or whatever it happens to be. So it does feel like a big build up, but all you have to do is hunker down and just wait for it to be over, because it will be over the day after. It's not one that hangs around, I reckon.
100%. So how do we best, from your perspective, your knowledge, your personal, what do we do to get through this time so we can, it's not going to be easy and there's going to be definitely ups and downs, but how do we navigate this in the as calmly as possible?
Yep. So I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think number one, having the surety, if that's the right word, having the knowledge that you are actually taking all the steps that you can take and that you have gathered all the information you can gather and you are empowering yourself with the tools that you need is a really important foundation. I always look at things from, they're always two big, I always call them balls, which may or may not be appropriate, but two big aspects to fertility, or balls for fertility. All the things we can calculate and measure and control, all the things we can't calculate, we can't measure and we can't control. And so we need to make sure we've ticked all these boxes so that when those things flare up, when that anxiety flares up, when those sadness or whatever flares up, we can go, that's okay that I'm feeling sad about this, because this actually is a shit situation, and that's totally fine that I'm feeling sad about this. So I'm going to let myself feel sad about it in the knowledge that I've ticked all these boxes, or at least as many of them as I know exist. And I am doing everything that's in my power to make this be different at some point. And if you're thinking, well, I'm not really sure if I have, then that's where you need to go, well, have I got a good, get one of my free checklists or something? Have I got a good doctor? Have I followed the preconception plan? Have I got good stress management techniques? Have I ticked all of these boxes? Am I following these instructions? Have I done the tests that I need to do? Then yes, it's totally fine that I feel sad about Mother's Day, and I need to find a way to get through the next week or 10 days by planning fun things to do, leaning into this stuff that we can't calculate, we can't measure, we can't control, and going to the movies, going out for dinner with friends, planning fun things, and just reassuring the logical part of your brain that you are actually doing everything you can that's in your power. So now you need to do this other stuff that you can, the bits that you can control, to lean into this other side of things.
100%. And on that, and I agree with that as well. And I think it's really important to let's not normalize feeling resentment, feeling sadness, feeling grief, feeling anger even at loved ones. I did as well, cousins who are having babies and it was Mother's Day and I've got to go to their function, whatever it is. And it's okay that I feel I felt so much resentment and so
You know what I used to do, Lou? I used to write letters to people who pissed me off. Don't send them, because that doesn't make anybody happy.
I'll make you feel a bit better.
So get a notebook so that it's not just a loose piece of paper that you're going to lose or someone else might find or might accidentally get put in an envelope at midnight because it feels like a good idea. Do it in a notebook and get as angry as you need to get with a red pen if you want to, and scratch holes in the paper if you feel you need to, but to whoever, because I carried so much anger around with me in those years. I was so angry at everybody, everything, everybody, anything. Ads on television, angry. Lady at the post office, I was angry with her. I was just carried all this anger. But once I started writing letters. I knew there was no point in having that fight yet again with my sister or my brother or my auntie or anybody. Much more, I needed to process it, but they necessarily didn't need to hear it, but I needed to have the conversation. So I had the conversation with a pen and paper. Dear Auntie Beryl, you really pissed me off today because blah, 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 blah. And then I've had the conversation. My brain's had the conversation, and Auntie Beryl doesn't ever need to know about it.
You know, a good add-on to that,
Yeah.
I like to burn it.
Awesome. Have a ceremony.
In the sink, obviously, safely. I'm not advocating for like.
Don't do it on your sofa.
No, we do it in the kitchen sink or outside somewhere safe, but I like to burn it and just watch the flames or the smoke and just have, like you said, like a little ceremony of letting go. Like, you don't have.
I didn't burn mine until much later because sometimes I needed to go back and read it and go, yeah, I'm still angry about that. But sometimes I actually, I write a letter to my husband and, this really pissed me off, and I'm in the height of anger. But I wouldn't talk about it. I would write it down. And then I would come back a couple of days later and reread it and go, okay, I was pretty angry. And maybe the way I wrote things wasn't excellent, but the foundational issue is still there. So now I do need to talk about it. So it helped me to process it to a point that it was that I could have a useful conversation about it.
100%. And like writing it down, like pen to paper, not typing, not on the phone. It's the best way to process. Allows the energy to flow through all of the emotions. And it takes 90 seconds to process one emotion. So in that moment, the anger, the sadness, grief, trauma, whatever it is, write it down. You've allowed it to process through your body. You're not holding on to that one. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And that was one of the questions from a lady. It was like, how do I stop? What is it? Is it okay to feel sad, angry, resentment towards people that I love? I mean, in any of this, of course it is, isn't it?
Anything you feel is okay to feel.
And it's validating though, not pushing them, just validating, saying, you know what? And you're not weird, you're not a bad person, you're not like a horrible, horrible human. You're just normal and you've got normal feelings.
Yep.
And it's just about what you do with that then, isn't it? It's not, you can't control the feelings, but you can control what you do with it afterwards. And that's what matters. And that's where the power is, especially on Mother's Day or holidays or anything like that. It's like, what are we going to do with that?
And then the next step after that, I reckon, Lou, like once you've acknowledged that you're sad, you're angry, you're resentful, all of those, what we perceive to be negative emotions, then we allow ourselves to go through those emotions and we'll come in and out of them and they'll come and go. And, some days will be better than others. But then I think it's important to almost not give yourself a time frame. That feels unfair, but to say, okay, I'm allowed to feel that. That's totally fine. But tomorrow I'm going to do something active towards a more positive feeling. And I don't have to feel it all day. It's not like toxic positivity or anything, but things that can give us some of those more positive feelings are doing things for other people, or things that help you feel good. Driving your car with loud music on, going to a fancy restaurant that you've saved, that you haven't been to and you've been talking about going to for ages, but you haven't done it. Book a night and go there on Friday night before Mother's Day or on Sunday after Mother's Day. Whoa, I survived, I'm going out for dinner. Go to the movies. There's nothing good on at the movies at the moment, but if there was, go and find something at the movies. Maybe there is where you live. Or lean into the mother figures in your life and shower love that way. We can feel sad and happy at the same time. So we can feel sad that we haven't got anyone showering love up to us, but we can shower it up to the mother figures in our lives, whether that's your actual mother or an aunt or a grandmother or the lady who lives next door whose children all live on the other side of the country, or someone in your life that you can shower love on, because it feels good to do nice things for other people.
Yeah, and it's about like lifting our vibration, putting us in that energy of joy, of happiness, of love, you know, all of the things which then obviously lifts, attracts like. So we're then starting to attract that higher vibrational energy of circumstances or people that allow us to keep lifting that energy or that vibration, cultivating joy, like just a little bit. You don't only have to, it only has to be 5 minutes a day. Just doing something for 5 minutes enough to shift your energetic state. Yeah, I'm just sorry. Enough to shift your energetic state that you can see that there is a little bit of light on the other side or something like that, and it's just enough to shift and build the momentum.
Yeah.
All right, another question. How do I like this one because we all do it. How do I stop comparing myself to everyone else that has what I want?
You don't. Can't. No one can. Of course you're going to do it. But you let yourself do it. And then you realize that you go back and listen to, this is really random and very out there. Have any of you heard of the sunscreen song? Okay, I'm old. I completed my university degree before the internet. And back in 1996, just before you were born, there was a song produced called the Sunscreen Song, and Baz Luhrmann produced it, who's an Australian producer, movie producer guy. And in that song, it's basically a valedictory speech to a group of graduating students of class of 19, I'm sure it's class of 1996, but maybe it doesn't matter. In that song, he says, the race is long, but in the end, it's only with yourself. So when you feel like you're comparing yourself to other people, you can go, yeah, cool, comparison is the thief of joy, but that's okay. It's normal to compare and see where you're up to. You know, you're running a running race, you're going to see where other people are up to, but then you just come back and remind yourself, this race is long, but this race is only with myself, and I have to stay in my lane. And that's where I come back to reassuring yourself, am I actually doing all the things that I can do with the information that I have available to me right now? Do I need to gather more information in order to make more choices, or am I good? Nope, I'm good. Awesome. You do you, boo. I'll do me. This race is long, but in the end, it's only with myself.
I love it. And like you said, comparison is the thief of joy, isn't it? And the grass isn't always, like, we don't know what's going on in somebody else. They might have a baby, but they could be they could have a whole lot of other stuff going on. So
remember that social media campaign where, and I don't know how they did it. It might have been someone like Pregnantish who did it, some big account in the States, but where this person, the camera was looking at people walking past, and it was someone pushing a stroller, but just above them was a bubble saying, I lost 3 babies before this one. And then another person was in the gym, and it said, you know, I had a heart attack last year and I've lost 30 kilos since then, or whatever. It was just giving you an insight into other people's stories. It was such a powerful campaign, because it just reminded me, but everyone who was watching it, that you just don't know what other people's backstories are. You never will. And so the race is long, only with yourself.
And I think, you know, social media obviously is here to stay and has, you know, there's a lot of great points, but there's also a lot of perfection out there that's actually not perfection, and these lives that we're looking at and seemingly have it. I mean, it's seemingly these people that have it all. I mean, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, and a lot of the time it's probably not what we want to be in. And we're saying, I wish I was Joe Blogs because of that perfect life that they've got. But, you know, it's just, I think it's the devil in some ways.
It really is. We need to be careful not to fall into the territory of, you know, and I realize it's quite a long way down that pathway, but at the territory of, oh my God, do you want my children kind of territory. We don't want to move into that kind of territory, because if you are struggling to create your family, then that is a right here, right now problem. And you want your family and your children, your babies, not someone else's or whatever. So again, you need to come back to that reassurance. Am I indeed actually doing everything I can? Great. Well, then I need to lean into all this stuff that I can't calculate and measure and control. And if you're not sure whether you are, get some independent advice to tick the boxes and make sure that you actually are doing everything you think you can do, that you can do. And then, or make some plans to do that, and then lean into the stuff you can't control.
And it's also like, let's listen to our intuition, listen to our gut, listen to our second brain. Like, what is it telling? If there's something, you know, oh, maybe I should be doing this. Oh no, it's not that important. Or maybe, you know, if somebody's, if your insides are telling you that maybe you should be doing something else, or you should be seeking a second opinion, or getting, you know, independent advice. You know, I've got clients that are just like, I'm not really happy with my fertility specialist, but she's really nice, but we haven't had any success. And I don't know whether to move or not. And I'm like, well,
Are you married to her?
well,
No.
and that's the thing, like, just because there's a relationship, like, you know, it doesn't mean that maybe, I mean, she might have, or he might have been the right person back then, but maybe they're not for your current circumstances. And, or I'm feeling really under pressure, or I'm feeling really controlled, or this doesn't feel right. If this doesn't feel right, then there needs to be something. You need to look, you need to maybe change it. I call it a team. Maybe you need to mix up your team a bit, you know.
You know what I always say to those clients? Are you going to invite them to your kid's 10th birthday party? No. Well, they're not important then. And you don't actually have to break up with your fertility specialist.
You can always go back.
And actually just book an appointment with another one. You don't have to tell, it's not like an airport lounge. You don't have to tell them you're leaving. You just book an appointment with another one.
You can also go back as well if you want to go back.
You can go back again. They don't even have to know about each other. You can date 3 of them at once if you want to. It's not like boyfriends. But it's true.
Boyfriends.
Well, maybe you do that too. I don't know. I'm not standing in judgment.
Each to their own.
I think it's important, you know, when I must clarify, when I say that you can tick the box and feel like you're doing everything that you can do that's in your power, I must clarify that by saying you're not doing everything, because that's insane. You actually can't do everything, because not everything is going to be right for you in your situation. So if you feel like you're twisting yourself in knots trying to work out if you are indeed doing everything, then take a little pause, take a step back, and get out of the Facebook forums and get yourself a checklist or I don't know, I'm not trying to sell steak knives, but have a 1-hour consultation with me and just tick the boxes. You know, are we on the right path here? Yes, cool. Okay, cool. We'll just keep going then. Do we need some different eyes on this? It feels like you need different eyes on it. Get different eyes on it. You're allowed to. You're a service. You're searching for a service. If you've got a plumber coming to your house to fix your toilet and they don't fix your toilet properly, you get a different plumber, right? You might get that plumber to come back once or twice and have another look, but if they're not going to do it, you get a different plumber. Same goes for fertility doctors. So I think this time of Mother's Day is another marker of the passing of time, and it's extra powerful because of that word mother that's attached to it, but it's really just another marker of the passing of time during your fertility journey. And I think some of those journeys are much longer than other people's, and you've just got to gather the right team around you and stay in your lane and stay the course.
And I think, you know, I've had a lot of clients that have their checklist and their to-do list because we all love it and we tick it all off, but they've become so overwhelmed with, they've seen their naturopath, their nutritionist, they're doing, you know, they're doing the 80-20, and then they're doing this diet and they're not eating gluten, they're not eating sugar, and but then they ate like a little Mentos or something, and then that's the reason why, you know, their transfer failed, and then they did this and this, and I'm like, okay, it's time to strip back. Like, listen to what your gut and intuition is telling you. Like, yes, you need a team, but generally it's only a small team that you trust, because otherwise it's going to get very overwhelming, and then you're even more stressed. And then
invite into my IVF WTF program, who comes in and does a little half-hour interview chat each time I do the program. And she says, if you're taking more than 3 tablets a day, you're doing too many. If there are more than 3 tablets a day in your supplement regime, something's not right.
It was interesting. I went to this women's leadership symposium in Sydney a little while ago, and they had the doctor. I wish I remembered his name. It was one of the big doctors that was part of the that was on TV for the pandemic. What was his name, Doctor? Anyway, we were talking about longevity of life, which is obviously slightly a bit different, but they had Dr. Devorah Lieberman from City Fertility there, and they had a menopause chick, and they had like a naturopath and him talking about how we get like longevity, how do we put our body in optimal health for a long time, like live longest, happiest lives kind of thing. And he kind of said, the pills aren't going to do it. If you're taking pills, it's just a Band-Aid solution for something. And what he actually said was, the reason that we're all shooting ourselves in the foot because we aren't cultivating enough joy, happiness, fun in our lives. We're becoming very stressed. That's leading to obviously a lot of health conditions, all of the things, and obviously not fertility related, but I thought that it was quite interesting that he said that the 20,000 pills that we're all taking because we want to be our healthiest, best version of ourselves for whatever it is, and fertility is actually potentially a waste of time.
Most of them are coated in plastic.
Yeah. And fillers.
Anyway, that is a conversation for another time, but it is definitely a challenge for fertility patients. I think in the next 10 days, what you need to be doing is leaning into the things that you love to do. So I get all of my clients to make a list of 10 things that they love to do. This is in my Preparing for Conception ebook. Make a list of 10 things that you love to do. Get your partner to do it too if you have one. Do it separately. Might take 2 weeks to create the list, but just if you find yourself smiling, think, oh, what am I doing at the moment? Because I'm obviously enjoying this. Write it down on the list and then stick it on the fridge, and then get your partner, if you have one, to stick theirs up on the fridge as well, and then compare. If there are any that are the same, schedule them. Just book it in. Do it that week. If there are some that are different, have a conversation. Okay, on Thursday you go do that, I'll go do this. Or there might be something really simple that you can just go, man, I'm just going to do that every day. I sort of had forgotten how much I loved listening to Def Leppard in my car really loud, or whatever it happens to be. And lean into doing more of the things that you love. How is that going to help you with your fertility? Well, from a scientific perspective, your hormones work like a symphony orchestra. So when we hear hormones, particularly when we're on a fertility journey, we think about estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. That's it. We need to remember insulin, melatonin, dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, adrenaline, thyroid hormones, and all the hormones that don't even have a name, right? And all of these hormones work like a big symphony orchestra. So if you have your flute playing beautifully down here and your pianist playing beautifully as well, but your cortisol down there on the big bass drum is playing really, really, really loud, it doesn't matter how beautifully these guys are playing because he's screwing up the whole orchestra. So we want to make sure that all the instruments can play in the orchestra the way they want to. And that comes down to nurture, nourish, and protect. Nurture is what we need to be really leaning into in the next 10 days. Nourish, you've probably got sorted because everybody thinks that they know how to eat healthy. So nourish, you probably got right. And protect is about making sure that there aren't any gremlins running around your symphony orchestra, turning the microphones up and down. And by that, I mean endocrine disrupting chemicals, exposing yourself to the chemicals that we're exposed to all day, every day, in all sorts of household products that are impacting how our hormones work, not just our estrogen and progesterone, but also our adrenaline, our insulin, our thyroid hormones, cortisol, our dopamine, our serotonin, all these other hormones. And that's what all these books up here are about, and all these books that you can't see here are all about, because they're the 3 pillars of preconception. And right now, leading into Mother's Day, we need to be leaning into the nurture aspect. Nurturing hormones, loving on them.
If our body is in constant fight, flight, or war, is trying to find balance, then obviously the reproductive side of things just kind of gets put to one side, doesn't it? Because it's not essential. Like, it's like there's a war going on here. We need to come into battle for that. That reproductive system.
You know, this is a little fact for you to take away this week and use as a little factoid. Did you know that kangaroos can pause their pregnancies? I know, right? Super cool. They can actually have 3 pregnancies at once. They have 2 vaginas. Wait, what now? And they can pause their pregnancy. So if the timing is not right, if there's not enough grass around, or there's too much of a threat, or there's a bushfire, they can pause that pregnancy until the timing is right again, and then they can release that pregnancy to continue to progress, so that the joey can be born at a suitable time. How freaking awesome is that? But imagine if that's what's actually happening inside our bodies. We just don't realize it. With our eggs, and they're pausing because we're in a state of heightened anxiety because the system just isn't right. And we don't see it because it's pre-ovulation.
I don't think it's imagined. I think it's what's happening.
I'm a scientist, so I need to see randomized controlled clinical trials to prove that. But I also
on a personal
something in it.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. All right. What I might do is I might turn it off now, stop the recording, so we can just have a bit more of a, if you guys have some questions, then feel free to come with your questions. Do you have anything else, Lucy, in terms of those listening back to the replay of that you'd like to add that might help us navigate this tricky time a little bit easier?
I'm sure that there's a blog on my website where I've talked about I've got a list of things you can say to people who ask you stupid questions when you're trying to conceive, and some examples of things that I did that may or may not have been the right thing to do, but might be provide you with a little humour and maybe some ideas for things you can do. I find this is another time of the year where families come together. People in very well-meaning and kind and supportive ways ask questions that might be very triggering or upsetting for you. It'll be very helpful to go into those conversations with a couple of answers up your sleeve, like when Lou and I talked before Christmas about preparing yourself for Christmas. Having a couple of answers up your sleeve can be really useful when people ask you well-meaning but insensitive questions. So there's a blog on my website. I can give you the link, Lou, and you can add it to the recording when you send it out.
Amazing.
And if you're not sure whether you're doing all the right things and you want some independent advice, please do reach out to me. As I don't know when anybody's watching this recording, but the IVF WTF program is open right now, and we kick off on Monday with our first live session on Monday night.
Amazing. You're a legend. I love your work, and I just want to thank you so much. It's just been an absolute pleasure. I just love, as I said, I love your work. I love your wisdom and all of your insights. And, you know, I really hope that you've all gained some value out of this. But I think look after yourselves during this time. Be compassionate. If you and my general rule is, if you wouldn't say it to a loved one, don't say it to yourself. So what language are you using around the length of your journey, what your body has done thus far, you know, how you and your partner are potentially, you know, what is the language, what are the stories you're telling yourself? And if you wouldn't say it to a loved one, don't say it to yourself. It's not fair. You know, you deserve so much more. And boundaries. Preparation is everything. Go in with a couple of, like Lucy said, some answers to some questions. Have an idea how you might handle it. I like to think about going in with the intent, what's the intent of the conversation? It's not obviously to get upset. It's not to get upset at them. It's not to blow up, it's go in with a clear intent, a clear boundary, and some answers to some questions, and you'll be able to navigate it with some form of clarity and calm in the storm. I'm sending you all so much love. Bye.